Welcome, everyone, to the third episode of the Open Throne Podcast. I'm your host, Cole Houck, and today's been a really busy day in the NBA world. We're just only 48 hours away from the official trade deadline. I'm here with my good friend and returning guest, Austin. How are we feeling today?
Like, the world's been turned upside down. It's been crazy everything that's happened today. Once the Jaren Jackson Jr. trade went through, it felt like the floodgates just opened and we just got trade after trade after trade. And so many rumors too about all sorts of big names that could get traded before Thursday. I really thought this trade deadline was gonna underdeliver based on how slow things started off earlier in the year, but I could not have been proven more wrong.
Yeah, we had some huge news last night dropping with the James Harden thing. That really came out of nowhere for me. I mean, obviously, they had their troubles, but I think they were like 16-3 or something after starting. I think it was 6-21. It was a real unbelievable turnaround for their season. So I figured that really came out of nowhere for me.
For
And I
sure.
figured there was going to be a domino was going to fall, something like the Giannis trade. Everybody's waiting for that to happen first, but this was the domino that happened, and then obviously a bunch of stuff happened really quickly after. The first trade we got to go over today is the Jaren Jackson Jr. trade, we'll call it, where the Jazz receive Jaren Jackson Jr., John Conchar, Jock Landale, and Vince Williams Jr., and the Grizzlies receive Walter Clayton Jr., Taylor Hendricks, Kyle Anderson, Georges Niang, and then 3 first-round picks. The first is the best and most favorable, of the Jazz, Timberwolves, and Cavs pick next year. And then the Lakers pick next year and the Suns 2031 pick. So what are your initial thoughts to that trade when you heard the news?
Well, to me, it shows that the Jazz are done rebuilding in the way that we've been seeing them rebuild. By giving up that best of either their pick, the Timberwolves pick, or the Cavs pick in 2027, the Cavs and Timberwolves are going to be good next year unless they blow up their rosters, which I just don't see happening. So they're clearly thinking that after this season, like they're not going to have another season towards the bottom of the lottery. And training for a piece like Triple J, who's a defensive anchor, can stretch the floor a little, and can really do a lot, that's a great piece for them to pick up, but to me, it shows that they're not done. They're looking for something else to pair with him to help take this roster to the next level. So I'm just really curious what other moves Utah might be making before Thursday.
Yeah, I can't remember a time where a team that was 20 games under 500 going into the trade deadline, like bought, made a move to win now, essentially. I
Yeah.
was I was really surprised to find that out. And what's interesting is that I'm not sure it's going to be like the Trae Young trade with the Wizards or the Brandon Ingram trade of the Toronto Raptors last year, where Trae Young hasn't played yet. I'm not sure if he'll play at all for the rest of the season. If he does, it'll be very little. Obviously, shouldn't impact too much the taking job they're doing. Same with the Raptors last season. Jaren Jackson Jr. has only missed, I think, 3 or 4 games this season. He's been really healthy, much healthier than he's used to. So I'm not sure what they're going to do. They're only a few games away from getting out of the top 8 where they have the pick would go to the Thunder, I believe. So and obviously that's going to be lottery luck anyways. Nobody can predict what's going to happen. You can put yourself in the best position and still finish outside the top 8. So it's going to be difficult. I'm not 100% sure. As I said, I was just really surprised that the Jazz were the team that Jaren Jackson Jr. was going to. And honestly, I was surprised that Jaren got moved in the first place. When
Yeah,
there was
same
a bunch of
here.
John Morant news, I thought they were going to retool or rebuild around Jaren. I'm not sure that was the greatest idea, but I heard that from somebody, and that it made sense that that's what they were going to do. And now here we are, him getting traded first before Ja. But now it seems like it's pretty much inevitable he's got to go too, right?
Yeah, with what they've been doing in terms of stockpiling picks and then trading an asset like that, Jaw's definitely next on the chopping block. And the Grizzlies, it seems like, are committing to a full rebuild, and they're doing it the right way. I mean, they have 13 first-round picks in the next 7 years. They got a lot for trading away Desmond Bane too. And they just created the largest trade exception in NBA history, around $29 million. And they add in a young guard, Walter Clayton, who I think could pair very nicely with Cedric Howard, who I'm a big fan of. And they've just got some other good pieces as well. They got a young Zach Edey, and especially they have a high draft pick this upcoming season, this upcoming draft, in such a loaded draft class too, combined with whatever other combination of picks they have, they position themselves very well for the future.
Yeah, the depth of this draft class is going to be crazy. It's one of the deeper draft classes we've seen as far as like all-star level talent, at least potentially going, many picks in, maybe even not the entire lottery, but, 10, 12 picks may be an all-star, which is, can't be said for most drafts, especially not last year.
Definitely not.
Walter Clayton has been pretty inefficient this season for Utah, but it's been kind of up and down as a whole the entire Utah year so far. So I liked him a lot out of Florida. I think he can raise the floor of a team like the Grizzlies. Taylor Hendricks got injured last year and has not been the same since then. So hopefully he can figure his stuff out. I really like Taylor Hendricks coming out of college, but he is not really after his rookie year, he hadn't really done a lot in Utah. Anderson and Yang were obviously just contract filler. That was needed to get up to Jaren Jackson Jr. And Jaren is making, I think it's like $35 million. But after this season or after the year after that, he's making 151 million over 3 years. So they got him signed long term. They really believe in this. It's interesting
Definitely.
because the Jazz, I think they're gonna have to play Jaren at the four next to Walker Kessler and Lauri Markkanen. Jaren is a big, obviously, but I think they would want to play him at the four and have just a huge lineup. I'm not sure what that would look like as far as you three meshing together, this 3 7-footers, but it's going to be a ton of rim deterrence and a ton of rim blocking.
I get what you mean, although I would be surprised if Lauri Markkanen is still on this team after Thursday. I think there's a very high chance we see him ending up getting moved.
You think that they traded for Jaren Jackson Jr., but they're still going to give up on Laurie? I mean, they gave up their first round pick for next season. I feel like they wouldn't, give
I
Laurie
know
away.
what you mean.
Oh,
I don't think they're giving up. I think they're selling high on him. He's been playing very well for Utah, but I think there's definitely a better asset they could get out and get there. And I think that he could be the centerpiece of another package for another player they're interested. Because like I said, the Jazz getting a piece like Triple J, like that's not something you do and then you don't add anything around that and that's the team. Like this is clearly a squad that's not going all in, but is done with the rebuilding in a traditional sense. I would deem it highly unlikely they don't make at least one other move.
so you think Danny Ainge is going to use Laurie Markkinen to get a bigger fish than Laurie Markkinen for next year?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Wow, I'm not sure I've heard that before. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that is a really interesting thought. I feel like, again, they still have I think it's top 8 protected picks. So if it's 1 through 8, which they're at 6 right now, then it goes to the or it goes to them. But if it goes outside of the top 8, it goes to the Thunder. And the Grizzlies are right around 10 as well. And obviously they're giving up on Jaren and presumably Ja for this as well. So they'll start falling and losing games as well.
For sure.
I don't really see a world where the Jazz, I think they're gonna keep Laurie, and I think they're gonna retool around a big 3, quote unquote, for them of Keontae George, Jaren Jackson, and Lauri Markkanen, and kind of put either Walker Kessler and get like a 2 in this draft, which, is very loaded in the shooting guard position.
Oh, 100%. Although just knowing Danny Ainge and his history, like, don't get me wrong, Keontae George has been playing well this season, but I don't see Danny Ainge being necessarily satisfied with like a big three of Keontae George, Triple J, and like Lauri Markkanen or Walker Kessler. I think there's something else he's eyeing.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I mean, Danny Ainge is really an interesting guy, and he said recently that we're tired of losing, like, we're done with losing. Now, I didn't think they were gonna do all this.
Me neither. Yeah,
So, I mean, it wouldn't shock me, but I definitely would be pretty surprised. I mean, we'll know, I'm not sure though. A ton can happen between now and Thursday.
definitely. It's gonna be very interesting to see what happens Wednesday and then Thursday up until the deadline.
Yeah, I'm not after what we got today, which obviously we'll go into depth later. I'm not sure there's going to be a ton happening. Like obviously, you can hope there's going to be a bunch of stuff. It's either going to be like one of the best deadlines ever, or it's going to be really quiet tomorrow and Thursday. I feel like there's probably no in between, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely still gonna be a flurry of smaller moves right around the deadline, but nothing but of the same magnitude. That's what we have yet to see.
I want to talk about this trade for the Grizzlies, and specifically the draft capital they received. So the best of the most favorable of the Jazz, the Timberwolves, and the Cavs. Obviously, like you said, the Timberwolves and the Cavs are like mid to late 20s this year. You're presuming they're going to be about that next year, right? If not even better.
Yeah,
And the Jazz, that Jazz pick, we'll see what comes of it. Whatever they decide to do, if they decide to keep Laurie and try and do something in the West with that big 3 of theirs, keep quote unquote again, or if they just make a splash and get something bigger, that's probably will be. I don't know. You have to assume it's probably the Jazz pick, so it's gonna be around the end of the lottery if you had to make a guess today without them,
yeah,
know if they're gonna make another move or not. That looks pretty good. The Lakers is probably gonna be outside the lottery as well. I mean, Luka's on the team. The future with LeBron is still pretty up in the air, but they have Austin Reeves, they have Luka, they got pieces that could get this team pretty easily to the 7 or 8 seed, even in the West. But it's the Suns' 2031 pick that I don't think people are talking about enough. I don't know what the Suns I didn't know what the Suns were gonna do at the beginning of this season. I don't know what they're gonna do in 2 years. I definitely don't know what they're gonna look like in 5 years, you know?
definitely not. It's tough to predict with them.
So, I think these are unprotected, and if it is, there is a lot of potential in that pick. I mean, that pick could be top 5. Devin Booker would probably be mid to or like early to mid 30s by that point if he's still on the team. I don't they're very unpredictable, but I think that pick could be really good, and nobody's I heard one person talk about it, but it's not being talked about enough, and that's pretty much the only saving grace, in my opinion, for the, Grizzlies in this trade is just the fact that they got that pick, because I'm besides that, I'm not really overwhelmed by this. I figured there was a market for Jaren, obviously, and, when we talked about the Ja Morant trades, everybody knew that they both had value, but Jaren had more value. I feel like if they coulda got more, if they explored more options, decided to either push this closer to the deadline or even in the summer as well, woulda got more out of him too. So I
Probably.
don't love this return, but I think that Suns pick is really what's making it, seem like it could be the right move.
I think it's still solid, and I do wonder how much of it with NBA GMs is they saw, like, or I guess this was the first domino to fall, so it wasn't like that, but how many teams saw all the other dominoes start to fall and were like, "Okay, we don't have to really wait anymore. We can press ahead on negotiations and things of that nature." Like, once the James Harden news dropped that, like, he was demanding out of, like, LA and everyone was surprised by that, it's like, "Alright, well, now we can all go for it."
Yeah, it's interesting because I thought that domino was gonna be Giannis, and I thought until Giannis even something like this, I thought, we're still waiting for a Giannis trade. That's what everybody's kinda holding their assets for. That's what I heard. So I even with a trade like this, I wasn't sure if, a bunch of dominoes would start falling. I didn't think it was gonna be like this. I like this trade for both sides. I don't love it for either side. I think I've seen a lot of positive people saying this was good, good to great for both sides. I think it's good for the Jazz and pretty good for the Grizzlies. But again, it's a weird position for the Jazz to be in, and I think the Grizzlies could have got more out of it. I think it's pretty good for both sides. Not too great for either side, not necessarily bad. I don't think anybody really won the trade or lost the trade. I think if you're going to say one team won, you have to say the other team won as well. No real losers out of this. Just not obviously it shake the NBA world up a lot, but it's not the greatest, fleece I've ever seen for either side.
No, yeah, I would agree, and I think a lot of how we're going to look at this trade in the future depends on what the Grizzlies return for Ja ends up being and what else the Jazz end up doing, which is
Yeah,
TBD.
definitely. So you do think the Jazz are going to make another trade before Thursday?
Yes.
Okay. What would you grade this trade right now? If something does happen for the Jazz, like you expect them to.
I mean, for the Jazz, I would probably give this a B plus or an A minus. Like, yeah, they had to give up a decent bit for Triple J, but it's not a crazy amount in the scheme of things, and Triple J is one hell of a player. So no real complaints for it on the Jazz side of things. I do think it'll be interesting to see what else they do, but just purely off of that, I don't dislike the move.
Yeah, I understand that. Another thing I want to say too is that could you imagine, the Grizzlies 3 or 4 years ago, the situation they were in, fine with the West, 2nd seed in the West, going into the playoffs against the Warriors, and telling them, in the last 6, 8 months, whenever they fired their head coach, I guess it was a little bit before that, but when they fired their head coach and all of this happened, that this was what this was gonna end up being. Obviously, they got a lot of draft capital out of it, but I can't believe how quickly this has happened. I was shocked when the coach got fired. I was surprised that Ja was ready to go and that both sides were really on board with it. And now Jaren's gone before Ja Morant is. Presumably, Ja's gonna be gone next 2 days as well.
Yeah. I'm gonna flip that. I'm actually not super surprised. I'm surprised Triple J got traded first, but if you looked at the ceiling of that Grizzlies team from a few years ago, that was, we're fine in the West. Like, you knew that team wasn't going to be competing in the Western Conference Finals or in the NBA Finals for a championship. Like, the ceiling of that team was a second round exit. And ultimately, if you're Memphis and you're really trying to win a championship, your odds are better off starting from scratch and hoping to rebuild from there as opposed to trying to work with what you already have. And with all the jaw issues, we kind of saw what his ceiling was, or at least what we think it is. And kind of with Triple J too. So, it doesn't terribly surprise me that they decided to tear it all down.
I understand that, and I heard somebody else say that like a lot of teams choose to not make moves like this and capitalize on what they can with the stars that they have, and they'll let it soak and they'll try and keep competing, but it won't do anything. They'll keep reaching that ceiling that isn't what they're going for and just run it over and over again. My Raptors could learn a thing or two about that, especially with the whole Pascal, Fred VanVleet era that we had. And another team that could learn a little thing or two about that is the Chicago Bulls, which transitions us into the next trade that we
Mhm.
received today. I was pretty surprised to see this. Like I said, I didn't know it was going to be a domino effect, but obviously we got a ton today. The Bulls received Jaden Ivey and Mike Conley. The Pistons got in return Kevin Herter and Dario Saric, who just got flipped from the trade the other day. And then the Timberwolves gave up a protected first round swap to Detroit to get off of Mike Conley's contract. So I'm there's a couple thoughts I have about this one. The first immediate one was the Bulls have a lot of guards. They probably have 7 or 8 guards on that roster right now. I mean, half the team is guards. Obviously, Josh Giddey's 6 foot, 8 probably, but the rest of those guys are all 6'4" and smaller. So that was kind of interesting to put Jaden Ivey on there and Mike Conley too. Obviously, I hope Mike Conley can either get rerouted somewhere else or he'll get bought out and get onto a team that wants him. Maybe
Mike Conley will get bought out.
yeah, or maybe he'll go to the Grizzlies and retire there. I'm not sure what'll happen, but I think that'd be a good story, way to end his career, especially because he's not doing much this year. Jaden Ivey is a really interesting piece. I'm glad Chicago has got a piece. They tend to go for people like this that are lottery picks that aren't really fanning out how they're supposed to, but they haven't lost all their value yet, so they like to take a chance on them. And it hasn't worked much for them, but it's not a horrible strategy. Obviously the people were drafted fairly high for a reason. So Jaden Ivey could be good. He was injured a lot last year. He's been shooting pretty good from three this year, so maybe that'll blossom into something. And then the real reason the Pistons did this, besides getting off of the 1 year for Ivy and not wanting to pay him next year, was getting Kevin Herter, who's not shooting well from three this year. I think he's about 31%, but he's been above average, about 38% his entire career up until this season, 3-point shooter. And maybe they'll keep Dario Saric. He's kind of he can shoot a little, space the floor a little bit too. Lord knows this team needs shooting. So, maybe
Yes.
maybe they'll keep him around. And then Timberwolves. I don't really know what the Timberwolves are doing here, to be honest. They actually had the chance to get Kobe White, I think, or maybe it's I. I think it was Io DeSumo that came out as well. And they said no, we don't want it because that'll put us over the. I think it was probably the first apron, or maybe it was one of the aprons of the tax, and they wouldn't be able to do a Giannis trade, which was also that they would want to do that next couple of days. So, what were your immediate thoughts to this trade?
Well, from the Timberwolves' perspective, the whole reason they were involved in this at all is because they wanted to dump Mike Conley's salary because they want to do the Giannis trade over the next few days. They're currently Giannis's top destination for where he wants to go. It's either going to be them or the Warriors, and right now they're definitely the heavy favorites. In terms of the Bulls and the Pistons, the Bulls pick up a good piece in Jaden Ivey, very promising young guard, like you were saying. And in terms of like all the guards they have on their roster, Kobe White is not going to be on this roster by Thursday. Ayo Dosunmu is probably not going to be on this roster by Thursday. And I don't mind Kevin Herter on the Pistons. I really like that actually. And yeah, like you said, he is having a bit of a down year, but I think surrounded by Cade and all the other pieces on the Pistons, I think he could very well have a resurgence playing for them and pick up his shooting quite a bit. And I think he'll be a very good asset for them come playoff time.
Now, I've heard that, and I knew this before the trade coming up, was that there was talks about the Pistons getting a floor spacer, somebody like a Lauri Markkanen or a Michael Porter Jr. And the centerpiece of that would be, it would be Jaden Ivey coming back from or to the team from whoever, so they could take a flyer on him like the Bulls are doing. I don't know what Ivy's market was, but I figured it would have, if there's talks of that being the main centerpiece to getting a player, obviously MPJ and Lauri Markkanen are way better as far as floor raisers is than a Kevin Herter. Do you think they could have got more with Jaden Ivey, or are you pretty okay with this as far as the Pistons?
I think they probably could have gotten more, but I'm okay with this as the Pistons. I think if you have a guy that comes in and is really good, like as a floor spacer, a Lowry Markkinen type, that's someone you have to kind of recalibrate your roster around, and that really changes the dynamic with a team like Detroit, a team that isn't used to being where they are right now, given how it's been the past few years. So I think a smaller change, an Ivy as opposed to a Markkinen or someone else, will work better for them through the rest of the season and into the playoffs. It'll be less of an adjustment, and I think the team as a whole will respond better to it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I was pretty conflicted going into this deadline as well about what the Pistons should do, if I was the ownership over there, because they said before that they don't want to go all in on somebody. And I could kind of understand that when they haven't had success for, 8 years. No, not 8 years,
Something
probably
like that.
7 years, something like that, 6, 7 years. So I
Yeah.
think, I don't know. I think it makes sense for them to get a floor spacer, but at the same time, and not go all in and give a bunch of draft picks and maybe something it doesn't work out how they want it to. But at the same time, when is the East gonna be this light, this easy, this down? This East is very, very poor, and I feel like this is probably the best chance they have to make a run. Obviously, got a lot of young guys over there. The team in theory should be a lot better in 2 or 3 years. Everybody should develop and play, build chemistry. Maybe a couple guys figure out how to shoot that can't shoot right now.
Yeah.
It's just I don't know. Do you think it made sense to go for somebody like a Kevin Herter, or do you think they should have gone with a bigger deal to capitalize on the situation that they have right now in the East?
I would still stand by Kevin Herter. I remember back when the AD trades were a lot louder, the Pistons were rumored as a very possible destination for him there. And while I don't think he's going to end up being moved at the deadline, the idea of going all in on someone like that, just I was appalled by it. I didn't think it would be a good idea for them as a team with AD, especially because of his injury history and how that continues. But even just for a player like that in general, yes, the East in theory appears a lot more open this year and is for sure the weaker conference out of the two. But I think what people also don't factor in terms of the playoffs in a lot of cases is how easy it is for an injury or two to hit a team and them suddenly be taken out of the equation. Like look at the Celtics last year. They were had to be considered the favorite to repeat and at least to make it out of the East. And then you have the devastating injury to Tatum, and the next thing you know, the Pacers are almost winning the NBA Finals. And no one at the beginning of the playoffs would have told you the Pist or sorry, not the Pistons, the Pacers were going to make the NBA Finals. So sometimes all it takes is a random fluke or two, even in a year where things are really stacked for it to work out. So I like the idea of smaller, more marginal gains for the Pistons. In a way, they're very different players, and I don't think Kevin Herter will have the impact someone like this. But this kind of reminds me of like the Celtics trading for Derek White at the trade deadline from the Spurs. It feels like more of that kind of a move than like oh, we're trading for like Kevin Durant's going to the Suns kind of deal. And I'm much would rather prefer that kind of first kind of move for the Pistons as opposed to the second.
Yeah, they got a good thing going. I mean, they have the second best record in the NBA. They had been dealing with a lot of struggle and a lot of losses the last few years. So I think it does make sense to do a smaller deal and kind of see how bringing in somebody like a Kevin Herter would do for this floor spacing and just the overall dynamic of the offense for the team. Obviously, they have no problems on defense. So,
For sure.
and then a little bit later, we had another trade where your Celtics were involved. We've been talking about the Celtics getting a
Mhm.
center for a little while. I'm not sure if this guy was ever on your radar, but the Celtics got Nikola Vucevic and a second round pick, and the Bulls received there and again got Anthony Simons and another second round pick as well. So it's basically just Anthony Simons for Vucevic swapped. And I want your opinion on what you think of Vucevic on the Celtics team. I think there's a lot that can go here.
There definitely is. I'll say it's interesting. He was not on my radar at all before the trade deadline, which he probably should have been in terms of like bigs available. But when I was thinking of the Celtics in terms of how they've played in the past and how they're playing right now, I think of more mobile, young big men that are really good lob finishers, can set bruising screens, and in some cases stretch the floor. And Vucevic can definitely do those last two things. He can play well in the post, but he's just definitely not the kind of center I would have imagined for this team. I don't think it's a bad move. I think it definitely helps them. I know there were some people that are worried about like, oh, Anthony Simons' production off the bench. How are they going to replace that? Like they have Peyton Pritchard, they have Derek White, they've got good guards. They'll be okay in that regard. And I do think having Vucevic and not just having to rely on Neemias Queta and Luka Garza every other night is definitely a plus for this team. And I think it'll be really interesting to just see how it goes. I mean, if it goes well, they can re-sign Vooch in the offseason and run it back. If not, they played him for half a season in a playoff run. It didn't work. Oh, well, Tatum's coming back next year and they'll be in a good place and they can shop for someone else in the offseason. So I don't feel like there's a lot of downside to it. And they massively dropped their tax bill. They got out of the first apron. Their tax bill went down like over $20 million. Like they gave themselves flexibility and they can figure things out. So this was definitely a very solid move for the Celtics.
I didn't realize that them dropping $6 million in contract went from a $40 million tax to a $17 million. No wonder they
Yeah,
did
luxury
that.
tax is crazy.
That's a lot of money. Yeah, I can't believe that there's 18 or 19 teams paying that, especially the ones that are higher up. I mean, that is just a ton of extra money to throw onto stuff, especially for the ones
Yeah.
that aren't, winning and succeeding in the NBA. Yeah, I didn't really thought about the bench units. for the Celtics taking a massive hit, but I guess that's true. Like you're basically going back to Josh, Minot, and then Jordan Walsh and a couple players like that. Which shout out to those two guys. Those guys are really good, especially on defense. But there is a severe lack of offense and bench production when Anthony Simons is not out there. You don't get Tatum, so Pritchard is still starting. I don't know how they're going to replace that. I mean, are you worried about the bench production at all, especially when it comes time for the playoffs? I mean, you guys are the 2 seed right now.
Not really. I mean, there's still Sam Hauser, who I absolutely love. I don't think the current bigs we have, I still think for the most part are playable. Like I still think Keita's gonna get minutes. Luka Garza maybe a little bit less. I also am a believer in Hugo Gonzalez's development, so I think that'll come along nicely. And then there's this other big too that I hadn't heard of until I was watching the Celtics Nets game, I think last week, and it went to like double overtime or something. And Keita fouled out and Garza fouled out. And they play this third string center up from the G League named Amari Williams. He's a 6'11 dude, lanky shot blocker out of like Kentucky, and he'd been like kind of in the G League. And he had 2 or 3 really clutch blocks and played really well. And I was like, you got a 6'11 athletic big. That's definitely something that could translate in the future. I definitely think that kid has an NBA future. And I think it could very well take a while to blossom, kind of like how Peyton Pritchard took years and years before he became what he is. But that's a very nice piece to have stashed away too. I don't think it'll pay immediate dividends, but that's just something to hang on to for the future. And in terms of like next season, we'll see if Tatum comes back for this playoff run. I'm starting to get the sense he won't now, and he'll just kind of take it slow and make sure he's 100% for next season. But they'll have time to retool and add a little bit of bench depth in the offseason as well as decide if they want Vooch permanently or not. Who knows? Maybe they end up signing Mike Conley on the buyout market. Like
Yeah,
anything's possible.
yeah, that's true. Y'all are doing everything except for playing Chris Boucher, by the way. Y'all bringing up a Kentucky guard from the G League instead of playing Chris
Kentucky
Boucher?
big man. He's
No,
got a
that's what
lot
I
of
mean.
promise.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so used to Kentucky guard, but yeah, a big man from Kentucky up from the G League instead of playing Chris Boucher, who y'all signed for a vet minimum.
You want him back. That's what it is.
I do not actually. I don't. I don't. I like Chris Boucher. I got a lot of respect for him, but he
But
he
you don't
still
want him
might
on your
be a
team?
pump fake, and he had a lot of issues on offense. So
And you're
yeah,
telling me we don't play him. You're describing it for me.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's probably fair. Missoula would probably hate that in practice.
Yeah, for sure.
I will say I can't think of the last time you guys had a big man defender as bad as Vucevic, like in pick and rolls and just and stuff like that. It goes back before Robert Williams, right?
Yeah, and he doesn't have the shot blocking potential that a Robert Williams or a Porzingis had, or even a Horford technically, I guess. And I didn't think of Horford as like a plus defender, but he wasn't bad by any means.
I
He
think
just
he was
wasn't
probably
super
a plus
athletic.
defender. He wasn't super quick on the perimeter because he was old, but I thought he was still pretty solid in the
Yeah, yeah,
post.
yeah, definitely. He
That's for
could hold
sure.
his own. He got that grown man strength.
Yeah, so somebody actually asked me if Keita's going to continue to start and Vucevic is coming off the bench.
I think Vooch is going to have to earn his minutes. I don't think Missoula's just going to hand the keys over to him. Missoula very much was the kind of coach where he's like, I don't give a damn about your all-star appearances or anything else. Like, you got to earn it here.
Right. So do you think first game who's going to be starting at the 5?
I would imagine first game, still probably Keita, unless Vooch like really impresses in practice, things of that nature. It's still gonna take him a little bit of time to learn the playbook and the system. But we'll see. I don't know. I'm not inside the Celtics organization, and they'll see how he plays. If there's like anything in like his physical or medical reports that come over, and we'll see what's what. But I do think he'll be getting quite a lot of minutes for them relatively soon.
It'd be nice to have another big that can stretch the floor, though. You guys have been missing that a lot this year, and obviously he's been
It's
he's
been
been really
rough.
consistent for threes for the last couple years in Chicago. He's actually hit
Yeah.
2 game-winning threes this year. Did you know that for Chicago?
No, I haven't watched a single Chicago Bulls game. Actually, no, I watched half of a Bulls game once against the
Was it against?
Hawks.
Oh, okay, okay. I was gonna suppose against the Celtics. Yeah,
No.
he's actually been really good for them. Yeah, at least it's that offensively for a 36-year-old center, however old Vuce is. But yeah, I think it's gonna be really interesting having that on you guys' roster. It makes more sense as far as the chucking up threes like you guys tend to do a lot, especially in come playoff time. That'll be really good. So I'm excited to see it. So Tatum, you said is probably not coming back for even for the playoffs. You don't think?
It's not sure, but I think the kind of the feel in Boston is this team is overachieving for what was expected of it. Just kind of ride it out and see how it goes. Adding Tatum back in the mix, I don't think it's that they're worried it's going to be a negative, but better be safe than sorry. That I think it would be much better to have him back at full strength than even if they could have him back at 80 or 90% this year. I think I got the sense he was trying to come back as quick as possible, but now I feel like it's more of a take your time and like set the league on fire in the 2026-27 season.
Okay, but say for example, I guess this is Missoula and the front office and just him, Tatum himself as well, however he's feeling. If you guys get the second seed and you play the Miami Heat, in the first round and you got a home series,
Yeah.
would he if he's I don't know, the 80%, 90% you were talking about, would he come back, do you think?
They're not going to bring him back into the playoffs without having played him in the regular season at all. That's not going to happen.
So if you guys make it to the Eastern Conference Finals and Jason Tatum feels great, but he didn't play, you don't think he's gonna get minutes at all?
If they're in the Eastern Conference Finals or NBA Finals, I would still be inclined to say no, maybe a little bit, but I don't think throwing him into playoff basketball after literally nothing. I don't think they're gonna want to
No,
go for that.
that's crazy. I mean, I understand you don't wanna lose Tatum to an ACL or, just a very long, severe injury. It could make it a lot worse.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, it's also the Celtics. They'll have very
Yes,
high
yeah,
high
they're
success.
they're they're in a good spot already, and you have to remember, playoff basketball is so much more physical and intense than regular season. It is everyone giving their all for 48 minutes, and that's a different kind of pressure and expectation in basketball than getting some shots and reps up and, like, your stamina back up in the regular season is. I think if you're trying to throw a guy in off the deep end who literally has not played all season, it's not a recipe for success.
Well, not necessarily, but if it's Jason Tatum, and in the Eastern Conference Finals, I feel like that's a decision you gotta make, especially at a certain point, right?
I mean, you'd think so, but I feel like if I'm Brad Stevens and we're already at that point without him, um, I would probably just ride it out for the rest of that season. See how it
Yeah.
goes and then retool in the offseason. But
I don't
we'll
I
see.
don't
I
think I
would not
agree
be
with
opposed to watching Tatum play. I'm all for it, and I hope he comes back because I want to watch him.
right,
But
but I don't know. I just don't think I could agree with that. I feel like if you guys were in his position where it was like it was the Eastern Conference Finals or even going into the finals and Tatum felt like he was pretty, he could do it. I don't really see a world where you wouldn't play, to be honest. But obviously, you don't want to risk getting him, out again because he missed the entire season this
yeah,
season.
I mean, we'll see. I firmly believe the Celtics will be in the Eastern Conference Finals, so you'll get to put your theory to test.
And then the last thing we got here, this one was expected to happen. I honestly thought it was going to happen last night, the way they were talking about it, but then it didn't happen
Yeah.
until tonight. And this happened probably an hour or two ago, so it's still real fresh in our brains. Is James Harden finally getting sent over to the Cleveland Cavaliers for Darius
Yes.
Garland, and the Clippers received a second round pick, which I thought was pretty interesting. Again, there's a couple thoughts I had about this too, but what was your instant reaction to this a little while ago?
I mean, I wasn't super surprised because I had seen a notification either from Shams or I think it was Windhorst about 2 hours before saying that it was very likely that this deal was gonna happen. And honestly, I like it from both sides. I feel like the Cavs were kinda stinted with the roster that they currently had. Like, it almost felt like they had hit their ceiling between this season and last season, and they played so much better without Garland than with him. I feel like adding James Harden, you've got so much firepower between him and Mitchell, and then you got Joshua Tyson at the 3, and you've got your bigs and, Mobley and Allen. So I feel like there's a lot to be excited for with the Cavs. And then with the Clippers, I don't mind them grabbing Darius Garland in exchange for James Harden. I feel like he's a very steady presence at point guard. He's a good decision maker, a good facilitator, and I think they'll play relatively well with Kawhi. I mean, it's not like James Harden wasn't. They won 16 of their last 20, like you pointed out. And frankly, I don't really know why he demanded out, especially because like it's James Harden and he's in LA. Like presumably he loves Los Angeles a lot more than he'll love Cleveland. But
I didn't even thought about that. James Harden
yeah,
being
think
Cleveland.
about the environmental shift from a guy like James Harden and all his habits and tendencies, going from the big nightlife and city of Los Angeles to not like Cleveland's a small city without any nightlife by any means, but Cleveland is different from Los Angeles in many, many ways, and I feel like Harden is very much suited in Los Angeles. So I don't fully understand why Harden wanted out, but I feel like both sides kind of made the best of this happening, and they both have something to look forward to.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about this too. I mean, again, I'm not 100% sure how I grade this for either side. It's it's kind of in a similar boat to what that first trade was, as far as like I think both teams kind of won, nobody lost, but I don't know if it's going to be a home run for anybody. Originally, my thought was that the Clippers got Darius Garland's, so they, that's Darius Garland's 26, James Harden is 36. There's a 10-year difference there. To be able to get an All Star caliber point guard for a 10-year older All Star caliber point guard really sounds like good business when you put it out just as bluntly as that. Obviously, there's more context
Yeah.
necessary. James Harden is playing. James Harden is putting up similar numbers to what he had last year, and he was 10th in MVP voting.
Yeah,
So
he
he's
was.
playing very good. He's playing much better than Garland. I think the Cavaliers were 13-13 with Darius Garland this year, and they were 17-8 without him, something along those lines. So they've been playing a lot better when he has not been on the court. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that it makes sense for the Cavs to do this immediately. And I also
Yeah.
don't love it in the short term for the Clippers either. I know that they were trying to, they weren't going to be able to re-sign Harden, or they didn't think they wanted to after 2027. And they only have Zubac on the book after the next season and, following 2027. But the Clippers, if they were on such a great win streak, and if they don't get their, they don't keep doing what they were doing and make the play in and make the playoffs, this pick goes to the Thunder.
The worst case scenario for the rest of the league.
We were
Yeah.
already talking about that with the Utah Jazz. So I mean that was, they had a really good thing going, and not that they decided, it was James Harden, being James Harden. But it's just, this is what me and Mark conflicted about it. Like I think there's good ways and bad ways to look at it from both sides, especially for the NBA.
Yeah,
If the Clippers don't turn, they don't keep doing what they've been doing, and suddenly the Thunder get this big. That's awful, you know?
it is. But then also I'm looking at it from the Cleveland side, and I'm thinking, yeah, this makes you better, but you're the Cleveland Cavaliers. Yes, you're 5th in the Eastern Conference standings right now, but you haven't had a problem with winning games in the regular season. You were like the 1 seed last year. The problem has been making it far in the playoffs. And is James Harden really the guy you think is going to put you over the edge when it comes to making it far in the playoffs? This feels like if you had traded for Russell Westbrook as your point guard. No hate to Russ, I love the guy, but if you're looking at Westbrook and Harden and you're thinking, "Oh, I'm not trying to elevate myself for the regular season. I'm trying to elevate my team for the playoffs and their ceiling." Are those really the 2 guys that you're thinking of? Like, yes, this is who's gonna elevate me in the playoffs given their track record? Like, every single year, it's something with those 2. With every single year, without fail. And given this is the team that, like, just lost in the first round of the playoffs, I know basketball isn't a one-player game, like, it's a team sport, but, I don't like that.
I know. Well, I will say there is something to be said for getting a pick and roll with James Harden and Evan Mobley, and especially Jared Allen, assuming Jared Allen's still there, which there have been a couple talks about maybe, pushing Mobley to the 5 and getting replacing Allen with somebody else at the 3 position. Although Jalen Tyson has been stepping up a lot recently. I think he was like top 6 or 8 in MVP, or most improved, excuse me. He's
Yeah,
been
he's been
killing it.
playing really well. And I will
Yeah.
say, if you're the Cavs, there's definitely a lot of fun stuff from a coaching perspective you could do. Like, you could run some great horn sets with James Harden at the point and having Mobley and Allen on the 2 blocks and then 2 shooters like Mitchell and Tyson in the corner. Or if you're trying to run Spain pick and rolls with like Allen and Mobley, like, and how mobile those guys are and how good of a passer Harden is. Like, schematically, there's a lot of really fun stuff you could do with this team. There is the defensive issue with having a backcourt of James Harden and a 6'1" guard, but, like, I do think that there is a lot in terms of, like, watching basketball for the rest of the season. It's going to be very fun to watch Cavs basketball games.
Yeah, and Kenny Atkinson is a smart offensive mind too. I mean, don't forget
Very.
that's the guy over there. So I think it makes sense that the Cavs did this. I think it also speeds up their timeline a lot. I mean, I think we said Harden was 36, right?
Yeah, it's win now.
Yeah. So you no longer have a young guy entering his prime at the point guard. Now it's old guy with, 3 young pieces, Mitchell and Mobley being the 2 guys that you want to keep around, and the guys with the higher ceilings. This was this is the big thing was James Harden. We had done this already. We did this with Daryl Morey and him when he went to Philly, and he said he was going to resign me, so trade me over there. And then like a year or 2 later, he didn't resign him. He said Daryl Morey's the worst person
Dora's a
ever. I hate
liar. Those
this.
poor kids in China, they didn't sign up for that.
I
They
know.
signed up to get autographs, and then James Harden was like, "Free me!"
Yeah. No, but I'm saying like we had done this already where he said, you know, I want out, I want signed, and somebody was
We've
like,
done
hey,
this a
okay, we'll
lot of
sign you for a couple
times.
years. And then
Yeah.
he didn't get signed. Who's to say this wouldn't happen again with Cleveland when he's 38 years old and maybe is looking way worse after the end of
I think
next year?
it will. I don't think there are too many teams that are just waiting to take on a 40-year-old James Harden. Like, he's pretty close to retirement. I think this is his last stop or second to last stop.
I hope so, man. But you never know with this guy. I mean, this is also the same guy that was like looked like he put on 30 pounds in the Houston Rockets pregame.
The
And then
fat
Charles
suit,
Barkley just
yeah.
quoted by saying, you know, he's healthy now. He's traded. Don't worry, he's good. Still
Yeah,
James
he just lost all the weight on the flight over.
Right. Yeah, that was hilarious. Shout out to the
Yes.
blue bodysuit that he had on for the Houston Rockets. So, yeah, it
That's
was
so
a
crazy that that actually
story day.
happened.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a huge day in the trades. I mean, again, I was not expecting this much, maybe not even in general. Like I said, I
No,
wasn't sure the Giannis domino was gonna fall. So what do you think? Do you think there is gonna be another all-star, like, you know, current all-star caliber player getting traded at the deadline?
I think Jaw's definitely still gonna get moved. The Grizzlies are going to do what they can to move him. I think Giannis, I don't know. There's a chance it could stretch off in the offseason, but I also very much think we could see a Giannis to the Timberwolves deal fall tomorrow. Not technically an all-star player, but Kobe White's gonna get moved.
You said Lauri Markkanen earlier.
Yeah, Lauri Markkanen, I would I would expect that to fall as well. I don't think Anthony Davis is ultimately gonna end up getting moved because the Mavs don't want to, but I know Rich Paul was really pushing for that. Besides that,
The Kings still exist too, by the way.
who?
The Kings.
Yeah, the Kings are aggressively pursuing Morant.
Well, I
So
was just saying, why are they aggressively pursuing Morant? They're the worst team in the NBA right now. What do they need Ja Morant
whoa,
for?
whoa, whoa, worst team in the NBA feels that crown goes to my
Their
Washington
record
Wizards.
record is the worst. Go look at Zenkathon. They have the
Is it
worst
actually?
record. Yeah, yeah.
They're worse than my Wizards?
Dude, they are like a couple games behind the Wizards.
But they're not, like, actively tanking the way we are.
I know.
Holy cow!
Yeah.
I was not familiar with the standings.
Yes. I honestly, I was surprised to find that they were that bad. I think they've lost a lot of games recently. But yeah,
They're, like, trying to, aren't they? Like, they're not trying to be bad.
I know. They still have Sabonis. He was an all-star, you know, 2 or 3 years ago. They have DeMar DeRozan. They have Zach LaVine that could go to a contending team. It's a lot of money still, but, you know, they they should get rid of some pieces as well, and that's kind of the all-star caliber guys I was talking about.
Ay, ay, ay.
I don't know
Well,
why are they going after John Morant? What is he supposed to do to that franchise?
inject life, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I will say I do think Giannis is gone tomorrow. Or
Tomorrow or
by the time people are hearing
today?
this today, I think he is being traded as of, like,
Wow.
Wednesday.
Okay.
One thing I will say I just saw is that, like, he left the bench tonight in the middle of the game, like, that the Bucks were playing, and that's, like, a telltale sign of, like, a guy getting traded is them
Oh,
sitting
man.
out or, like, not being on the
Yeah.
bench
No,
tray.
that's
It
not a good
happened to
sign.
Trey, it's happened to, quite a few guys.
So he just walked into the locker room, like,
I
in the
didn't
3rd
I
quarter
didn't
or
see the
something?
clip, I just heard about it. I gotta search it up, but I would be yeah, the Giannis domino I'm expecting is going to drop. And then who knows, maybe someone else, like, we weren't expecting Harden to demand a trade. Next thing we know, some other star that we weren't expecting demands a trade.
Well, honestly, that's if the Giannis thing happens in the next, you know, 12 or so hours, I think because again, I think a lot of teams like the Miami Heat, the Minnesota Timberwolves, all that, were saving the Warriors. They were saving assets and putting trade packages
Yeah, so
together
then
to
they're
get
gonna
stuff
move
out of
something.
Giannis.
They have all the package, like,
Yeah.
ready. They're gonna split it up and find other ways to use it.
So I think that would pretty easily go towards somebody else. Say Giannis goes to Miami. The Timberwolves still need a guard, but the Warriors are still they need to get off Kuminga because you know
Our
that's his
favorite backcourt of John Morant and Anthony Edwards.
yeah. I'm actually really worried. I'll put this into the air too. I'm really worried that since James Harden is going to the Cavaliers and Garland is going to the Clippers, that the Timberwolves are going to mess around, either get Giannis and not get a point guard, or not get Giannis and still not get a point guard and still have that gaping hole where they need it come playoff time. I'm really worried they're not going to get a point guard out of this, and it's going to be a disaster. No matter if they have Giannis, they still
We'll
need a point
see.
guard.
Worst case, they can try and pick up someone off They could pick up Mike Conley off waivers, sign him to
Right,
a vet
bring
minimum.
Mike Conley back on a cheaper contract.
Low key, they could. But no, I think they'll figure something out. They will have some form of a competent point guard by the time we reach the playoffs. I'd be very surprised if they didn't.
They have Dante DiVincenzo right now, but is that I don't think Dante, shout out to Dante. He's a
They
great
can
player.
play him at the 1 if they need to, but
They
I'd
have,
imagine they're still looking for
they
something
have, and it's
else.
not where we still say they need a point guard, you
Yeah,
know?
they still do, but I'm saying, like, they they do have a body they can put at the 1.
It's not gonna be enough come playoff time, and that's what the Timberwolves
No,
worry about.
no, they still
They've
need
been to
something
the Western
more.
Conference Finals the last few years.
Yeah, and the West is loaded,
Yeah.
very loaded.
Well, I
So,
was gonna
we'll
ask you
see.
about a prediction, but you just said Giannis is gonna get traded next 12 hours. I mean, that's more than what I expected out of you.
Yeah.
So,
I'm calling the
eh,
Timberwolves too, calling that now, and then the Warriors are gonna scramble and try and figure something else out, and I don't even know who they would end up going for at this point. I have to look at all the, like, different trade targets,
but the
but
Timberwolves are getting John Morant by the end of the deadline as well.
if they get Giannis, I don't know about them
Okay, but
getting
you
Ja
said they're
too.
getting who are the Timberwolves getting?
I'm saying they're getting Giannis.
Okay, gotcha. Interesting. Yeah, I like Giannis and Ant together a lot. I think that's a really great combination. They
For
got to get
sure.
rid of Jaden McDaniels. Somebody put out a tweet that said there's no world where they don't give out Jaden, and
Yeah.
that's obviously it's gonna be a tough loss. And Jaden's great, but
But it's
Giannis
Giannis
kind
you're
of gets
getting.
him
You can
stuff.
stomach that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Still
For
have
a
I would
generational
say
talent like him.
Gobert and Giannis is terrible. Haven't heard enough people talking about that either. It's gonna come if that does come into fruition. It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough come playoff
Giannis is
time.
gonna spend some time working on his jumper.
Yeah. Well, that's all we have for today's episode of The Open Throne. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure to like and subscribe wherever you listen to this. And tune in the next time as we cover the rest of the NBA trade deadline.